The next distress tolerance skill we're going to learn is turning the mind. So it is pretty similar to, there's a DBT mindfulness skill about Teflon pan. So Teflon is the coating that is on most nonstick, or was on most nonstick pans. And the idea is, if you're doing a mindfulness and intrusive thoughts come in, try to think about it as sort of Teflon, acknowledge it and let it slide away. And that sort of pushing things away is not very effective and very useful, because sometimes you are sort of ignoring it too hard that it kind of tries harder to come back in. If you've ever been in that kind of situation where you're like, don't think about this, don't think about this, all you could do is think about it. So turning the mind is very similar. It is in some ways a difficult skill because it talks about pain and accepting the pain you're in. That could be physical and that could also be psychological. So turning the mind is focused on the here and now. It in some ways is a little bit of a mindfulness skill because it's about your present self in the moment. It's about acceptance, and acceptance doesn't mean that you take any ownership necessarily, or that you blame yourself for anything that is happening or happened in the past. And it's just about accepting yourself in the moment, whatever those thoughts might be. It's just about acknowledging that that happened and that you are here today. And for some people, that actually needs to be like a verbal cue that you tell yourself. Maybe you're dealing with some trauma, you're being re-traumatized or triggered, or you're seeing someone that brings up past emotions that are now present emotions, and you feel overwhelmed, as an example. Just telling yourself, I'm here today, that happened, I'm accepting that it did happen. I'm also accepting that I'm in the here and now. I'm in class, I'm at work, I'm trying to get to sleep, and it's a struggle right now. It kind of reminds me of the sort of que sera, sera, whatever will be, and just kind of focusing on accepting the here and now in the present moment. And once again, that's not about saying that that trauma that happened was okay, or that it was your fault, or that it should have happened in any way whatsoever. If you're focusing on a task sort of in front of you, something that's to come, maybe you're thinking, oh, that final is coming up and I'm just going to do terrible at it. I'm a really terrible student. People have told me that all my life. I'm just never going to make it. You know, thinking those thoughts, kind of future focused too, is also a good skill for turning the mind. I've worked with people who visualized sort of turning, sort of looking at a trauma or something going on is like to the side, and just focusing and just thinking about, you know, their feet firm on the floor, maybe even doing a mindfulness and focusing on their present task. So whether that is washing dishes, whether that is looking in the mirror and realizing you are okay, you are safe, you're in a bathroom or you're in a bedroom, and just kind of focusing on maybe your even physical presence with a mindfulness, progressive muscle relaxation, or just noticing other things around you, and just focus on the present moment. It is okay to acknowledge either things that are back here or things that are here that might be interfering with your day-to-day, moment-by-moment life, but just sort of acknowledging it, turning the mind, being effective once again, and focusing on the task at hand. Also, the idea of turning the mind is that you're not going to all of a sudden be dealing with these traumas, feeling overwhelmed, and be like, I'm going to use turning the mind, and then turn the mind, focus, and it goes away. And that's it. You're never going to think about it ever again. The turning the mind DBT skill it mentions in the book is just a continuous turning of the mind. It might take 100 turns to continue focusing straight ahead and not back here or whatever else might be going on in your life. So also remember, turning the mind is an ongoing skill. It is a skill that does not happen one time and it's done with, but turning the mind might be a moment by moment, minute by minute, every 5 minutes skill of reminding yourself, I need to focus on this paper right now for school. I need to focus on this meeting at work that I'm sitting in and get back to taking notes. I remember what's going on. I need to focus on sleep because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. This is my 3rd day being up dealing with this issue. And it did happen. I'm acknowledging it happened. I'm accepting that it did happen. and I feel a certain way about it. And I also need to sleep more than 4 hours in order to be effective in my job, in my work, in parenting, etc., etc. So it is a skill that you need to kind of redirect, realign yourself constantly. I will often use the sort of mechanic car analogy that, you take your car in, if it feels slightly off, and yet we allow ourselves to kind of sometimes feel really off before we make an appointment or tell a friend or get checked. So treat yourself more like you might be treating your car or your house. When, your shoes sort of start falling apart or aren't comfortable or you lose the sole, you're probably quick to work on getting another pair of shoes. So try to turn your mind, acknowledge things happened, and it might take a lot of turns to get there. But I think turning the mind is a great skill for dealing with trauma, and I think it's also a great skill for in the moment. If you need to focus on school, uni, writing a paper, work, other things that might be going on in your life, and you find that you're dealing with a lot of static in your day-to-day, it's a good skill. It's a good quick skill to just sort of refocus, and focus on what needs to be done in the moment to be effective. So that is the DBT, distress tolerance skill of turning the mind.